The shocking truth: Captain locked a Playboy, but he was a millionaire doctor at midnight. In the midnight hour, a secret simmered beneath the surface of the upscale Manhattan apartment complex like a suppressed volcano ready to erupt. Captain Gregor Marlowe wasn't just any security officer, he was a man burdened by whispers, rumors of wealth, hidden identities, and a past so tangled it sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to pry. The residents adored their lavish lifestyle, but when the clock struck 12 and the city lights flickered to life, the real drama unfolded in the shadows. Just that evening, a new tenant moved in, a strikingly handsome man who arrived in a sleek black sports car that purred like a lion, its headlights slicing through the dark like twin daggers. His smile was captivating, a flirtatious glint in his eyes as he mingled with a group of guests, but no one knew he was more than just a charming playboy. Unknown to those around him was a mortgage on mystery. He was a doctor, a millionaire healer who had traded a white coat for the allure of nightlife. But where did his wealth come from? Was he running from something, or perhaps toward something? As Marlowe observed, an eerie feeling spread like a chill through his veins. He could see it in the way the man's laughter echoed, an envelope of tension so thick it almost suffocated the room. Every feigned smile masked a deeper truth as he tossed back whiskey like water. The flicker of unease caught Marlowe's gut, and with every glass raised, the murmurs of intrigue grew louder. Had the world really been so naive? Suddenly, an argument erupted from the bar area. A shrill voice collided with deep, menacing growls. Tension crackled like electricity in the air. There it was, a woman frantically gesturing, clutching a small device, her face awash with confusion and fear. "You can't just lock people out," she shouted, and silence swept through the room like a tidal wave. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that moment, every eye turned to the Playboy doctor. A pulse of dread beat in Marlowe's chest as he felt the weight of unasked questions hang, draped like fog over the gathering. Who was he really? What dark secrets tethered him to this chaos? A flicker of ambiguous movement caught Marlowe's eye. Was the Playboy slipping something into his pocket? What was the game here? What would happen when the midnight hour fell once more? This was just the beginning. Shadows loomed thick with secrets yet to unfold. The room froze. Gasps rippled through the crowd, as if a sudden gust of wind had swept away everyone's air. Marlowe could almost hear their collective heartbeat, racing in rhythm with his own. All eyes leaped to the woman, her frantic gestures fanning the flames of curiosity. What did she mean by locking people out? It was a riddle that sliced through the midnight tension like a knife. The Playboy doctor, a name he still couldn't place, flashed a grin that carried an unsettling hint of arrogance, as if he were both the puppeteer and the plaything. "Relax, folks. Just a misunderstanding." His voice dripped with charm, flowing over the crowd like honey, but Marlowe could sense the sharpness behind it. This wasn't just banter, it was a facade cloaking something sinister. The woman stepped forward, trembling. "I was trying to get in. You said I could stay here. You have no right to deny me access." Her frustration dripped into the atmosphere, heavy enough to suffocate. Marlowe instinctively moved closer, compelled by an instinct he didn't quite understand. Something about her felt vital. Maybe she possessed the key to unraveling the mystery. The doctor's facade cracked for just a heartbeat before he laughed, though it sounded like gravel scraping against metal. "Oh, darling, don't you get it? There are rules here. Some doors are meant to stay closed." A tense silence fell, and Marlowe felt the weight of every person's gaze solidify around him. Could he risk stepping in? His job was to ensure peace, but he had an inkling that this wasn't mere petty squabbling. "Listen," Marlowe said, his voice cutting through the stifling air. "What is going on? If someone's being locked out, we need to know why." He looked at the doctor, trying to catch a glimpse of the truth hidden behind that perfectly sculpted mask. The doctor's smile faded, replaced by something colder. "I assure you, Captain," he threw the title out like a challenge, "everything is under control. You have no idea what you're walking into." Marlowe took a step forward, edging the tension tighter. "Try me." Before the doctor could respond, the barista intervened, sensing the building storm. "Ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget we're in a shared space. I'll check the security footage if we need to clarify anything." That suggestion hung in the air like a dare, igniting a firestorm of murmurs, some fueled by fear, others by intrigue. Marlowe's mind raced. He had to act quickly. The stakes were high. If the doctor was hiding something grim beneath that charming exterior, it could shatter the calm of the luxurious building that held its secrets so close. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A deep rumble echoed from the street, causing shadows to leap against the walls. The barista's face paled. That was weird. Did anyone else feel that? Then, in an alarming twist, the nurse who worked on the same floor as the Playboy but had slipped into the background earlier piped up, her tone sharp and accusing. "He's not just a doctor. We've been warned about him. There are whispers about what he does after hours." A collective gasp bled through the room, and all eyes darted back to the doctor, no longer smooth and alluring but a potential threat, an enigma wrapped in sleek fabric. But just as Marlowe felt the rush of adrenaline kick in, the doctor stood, brow furrowed. "Careful how you tread, folks. Some doors should never be opened," he warned, and the chaos crescendoed within the walls. Marlowe could feel at the teetering edge of discovery. But the question gnawed at him: what hidden door was the doctor protecting, and what would be unleashed if it swung open? The midnight hour was far from over, and he had a feeling that the darkness was just beginning to reveal its shocking truths. Marlowe could feel the electricity in the air, thick and alive. His eyes narrowed as he studied the doctor, who was now looking more like a caged lion than the charming figure he'd been just moments before. The man shifted his weight, a barely concealed tension sparking in the atmosphere. "Everyone, please," the barista stammered, attempting to regain control. "We need to stay calm. Let us not jump to conclusions." But her voice trembled, barely rising above the growing murmur of uncertainty. Marlowe's instincts surged. The woman, the one who had spoken about being locked out, was still trembling, and he took a step toward her, feeling an urge to shield her from the storm brewing in the room. "What do you mean by locked out?" He pressed her gently, hoping to draw out the fragments of her story. Her eyes darted between the doctor and the far wall as if searching for safety. "I was in a meeting," she said, her voice threatening to crack. "I overheard things that I shouldn't have." "What kind of things?" Marlowe leaned closer, trying to absorb her fear, her urgency. She hesitated, biting her lip, her hands twitching at her sides. "Something about AA procedure. Something that isn't right in this place. That's why I needed to get in. They know I'm onto them." A deafening silence cloaked the room, unfamiliar faces morphing from curiosity to dread. The implication of her words crashed against Marlowe like icy water, and he felt the weight of the moment seep into him. "Procedure?" Marlowe whispered. "Yes," she breathed, almost inaudibly. "It has to do with..." Suddenly, the doctor erupted with laughter, a sound that sliced through the heavy tension. "Oh please, spare us the theatrics. What's happening here isn't about you. Or anyone else, for that matter. You're making a scene for nothing." Marlowe's heart raced as he recognized the coolness in the doctor's tone, a desperate attempt to downplay the mounting chaos. It was a diversion. But was it an act of protection or something more sinister? Then, a crash erupted from the back of the cafe, as something or someone spilled to the floor. Murmurs transformed into anxious chatter as heads turned. Marlowe spun around to see a man struggling to regain his balance, sweeping several chairs out of his path. He looked utterly frantic, eyes wild with terror. "Get away from her!" he yelled, pointing at the woman, now fully caught in the crossfire. "You don't know what you're getting involved in." The crowd fell silent again. Gasps mingled with the low vibration of apprehension. Marlowe stepped forward, determined to learn more. "What do you know?" he demanded, his voice rising. The man's face paled. "They'll come for us all." "You can't," he broke off, choking on his fear. "Come for us?" Marlowe pressed, a lump forming in his throat. Who was chasing them, and why? The lights flickered again, dimming until they almost extinguished, and a buzzing alarm pierced the air. The barista dashed behind the counter, fumbling with her phone, while chaos erupted anew. Shadows danced against the walls, and for a moment, everything felt poised at the edge of madness. Then the doctor's voice cut through it all, smooth despite the turmoil. "Enough. You need to leave. Now." But Marlowe wasn't ready to submit. He glanced back at the woman, then toward the doorway that led deeper into the cafe. "We can't just run. We need answers." What had they stumbled into? As the doctor's expression darkened, Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was just beyond their reach, a truth others were willing to kill to keep hidden. The stakes were rising, and he was half a heartbeat away from being swept into an unraveling nightmare. But the door was still there, and what lay beyond it may hold the answers they all desperately needed if only they were brave enough to unlock it. Marlowe's heart thudded as he weighed his options. The chaotic scene unfolded around him, the barista fumbling with her phone, the frantic man still shouting warnings, the doctor's steady gaze fixated on him like a predator. Everything felt heavy with unspoken threats, and he knew they didn't have much time. "Why are you so afraid?" Marlowe asked the woman, his voice steady despite the avalanche of uncertainty. "What have you heard?" Before she could answer, the doctor waved dismissively, his scorn drenching the air. "Whatever madness you think you're unraveling here, it's meaningless. I assure you, we are all safe." "Safe?" The frantic man scoffed. "You think we're safe? She knows too much." The doctor's smile faltered, replaced with a menacing edge. This time Marlowe saw it, the mask almost slipping. He exchanged a quick glance with the woman beside him, her face pale, her eyes widening with dread. "What did you overhear?" Marlowe pressed again, urgency rising in his chest. "Nobody can know." Her whisper drifted above the fray, nearly lost. "They're doing something in the back. Something inhuman." Her words hit Marlowe like a brick. Something inhuman? He felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. Something inhumane? Marlowe repeated, his mind racing. What does that even mean? Before she could respond, the lights flickered ferociously, plunging the cafe into a strobe of panic-stricken shadows. The doctor's face morphed into a mask of fury, and he slammed his hands on the counter. "Everyone, get out now. You can't silence us." Marlowe shouted back, adrenaline surging. With a determined step, he turned towards the entrance to the back room, but the man lunged forward, gripping his arm fiercely. "Don't. You'll regret it. They'll come for you." The man's breath came in frantic bursts. Marlowe felt the weight of his grip but shoved it aside. "The truth matters. If they are doing something wrong, we need to expose it." The doctor, his facade cracking, lunged forward, but Marlowe was faster. He took a step back, pulling the woman with him, determined to breach the threshold. The world outside felt like a ghost town, noises muffled through the door. As they approached, the door swung open slowly, revealing a sterile hallway dimly lit. Neon lights hummed, casting an eerie glow. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp and sterile, creating a stark contrast with the chaos behind them. "Stay close," Marlowe urged the woman, stepping into the corridor while casting one last glance back. The frantic man remained frozen in place, fear etched deep into his features. "Please, don't do this," he pleaded, voice rising. You don't know what you're messing with. Ignoring his warnings, Marlowe pressed on, driven by some instinct deep within him. They had to uncover the truth behind those locked doors. The hallway stretched before them, filled with menacing whispers of secrets that lay ahead. Just as they moved deeper, a loud crash echoed from behind. Marlowe's heart leapt. Were they too late? In a split second, he grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her along, a rush of desperation fueling his steps. "I can't," she started to say, but he didn't stop. "Trust me," he urged, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The air turned electric again, thick with tension, as they neared a set of heavy double doors at the end of the hall. Their only path surged with uncertainty and dread, but then, none of it prepared them for what they found waiting just beyond those doors. What awaited them in that hidden chamber could change everything they knew. And in the wait of that moment, Marlowe felt the world tilt. Would they uncover a horrifying secret or unleash a nightmare they couldn't contain? Marlowe pushed through the heavy double doors, heart racing and breath caught in his throat. The room beyond was a stark contrast to the sterile hallway they had just traversed. Dim light flickered erratically, revealing a maze of strange equipment and machines that hummed ominously. The air felt charged, heavy with an unsettling energy. Each step brought an uncomfortable mix of curiosity and dread as they ventured deeper into the chamber. He noticed a series of glass cells lined up against one wall, each one yielding glimpses of figures suspended within, bathed in a blue glow. Marlowe's stomach twisted. What the hell had they stumbled upon? "Look!" the woman whispered, her voice trembling. Marlowe followed her gaze, his heart sinking. The figures in the cells appeared almost human, but there was something disturbingly off about them. White, shining skin. Eyes that seemed to glow despite the dim light. It felt like he was looking at a mockery of life itself. What are they?" she stammered, fear etched across her face. "I don't know," Marlowe replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we need to find out. We have to know the truth." They crept forward cautiously, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the strange humming in the air. Knowing they shouldn't linger, Marlowe scanned the room, seeking answers, something that made sense. In the center, an enormous computer screen flickered to life. Frantic numbers and codes scrolled across it, spelling out something unintelligible yet deeply foreboding. A hideous shriek pierced the silence, ricocheting off the cold walls. Marlowe's blood ran cold as he jumped, gripping the woman's arm tighter. The sound echoed again, followed by hurried footsteps. They weren't alone. "Quick, we need to hide," he said, guiding her to a shadowed corner behind a stack of boxes. They crouched low, breath hitching, as shadows darted past. Marlowe's senses sharpened, he could barely hear the muffled voices of approaching figures. "If they find out we've lost the subject." A man's voice, urgent and clipped. "Nothing matters except maintaining control. We can't let them know the truth behind this." The words felt like a stone dropped in his gut. Control? Truth? A heavy, commanding presence soon entered the chamber, and Marlowe felt the woman beside him tremble ever so slightly. The doctor's silhouette loomed, flanked by a couple of guards. Their faces were set, mouths tight as they surveyed the room. How could this happen? The doctor spat, anger coursing through each syllable. "We need to shut it down. Now." "What are they hiding?" Marlowe muttered, confusion etched on his features. In that moment, the computer screen blinked, and a faint voice crackled through speakers nestled within the equipment. Subject 42A, initial testing not conclusive, should proceed with Phase 2. Marlowe peered through the slits formed between the boxes, his heart slamming against his ribs. Phase 2? What kind of testing were they conducting? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside the chamber. Instinct kicked in. Marlowe felt an urgency that wasn't elastic, it felt like a trap closing in. The doctor and his guards shifted focus, their attention pulled away from Marlowe and the woman. "Let us move," Marlowe insisted, pulling her from hiding. They slipped along the wall, avoiding the chaos, making their way to a door marked Control Center. Each moment felt like eternity, the tension ripe, and he could feel the danger closing in. Just as they reached for the handle, the lights flickered violently. A siren began to blare, piercing through the air, drowning them in noise. The door swung open abruptly, revealing a room full of shadows, with eyes glowing in the darkness. Marlowe felt his heart plummet. Were these the results of whatever experiments the doctor was conducting? Before he could process further, he was pushed aside as the woman rushed past him, screaming as the chilling figures converged upon them. Marlowe stumbled backward, the stark realization hitting him like a freight train. They had awakened something they should have left untouched. He turned toward her, desperation seizing him. "We need to get out. Now." But the door slammed shut behind them, trapping them within. And as the relentless hum of machinery grew louder, he wondered if they could escape. Were they on the brink of revelation, or had they just sealed their fate? The shadows shifted, revealing outlines of figures that whispered of nightmares made flesh. Marlowe's mind raced as panic clawed at his chest. The woman's scream echoed in the confined space, reverberating off the steel walls like a death knell. His feet moved on instinct, driven by pure terror. "Stay close," he shouted, reaching out for her. Behind them, the ominous figures breached the doorway, their forms indistinct yet sinister. They emerged, each step deliberate, their glowing eyes fixed on Marlowe and the woman like predators locking onto prey. A jolt of adrenaline coursed through him. He grabbed the woman's hand, dragging her away from the chaos. They darted past the first row of glass cells, the sight within them now an agonizing reminder of their potential fate. The figures hung like macabre decorations, limbs lifeless, their skin unnaturally radiant under the flickering lights. Marlowe shuddered but kept moving, pushing through the scent of metal and stale air. "Where do we go?" she cried, glancing over her shoulder. "Just keep running," he urged, heart hammering, weighing the options that filled his mind like fog. It was all a blur of shadow and uncertainty. All he knew was the hallway ahead curved sharply, leading into darkness. A dissonant shriek echoed from the control room behind them, a sound that sent a shiver racing down Marlowe's spine. They couldn't turn back. No way. They cornered the jarring turn and stumbled into another narrow corridor. The harsh, sterile lights threw their silhouettes against the concrete walls. Marlowe glanced at the woman, seeing hope and fear collide in her wide eyes. "Do you think we can hide?" she gasped, breathing heavily, her fingers gripping his tightly. Marlowe shook his head. "We need to find a way out of this place." His mind drummed with urgency. In that moment, a flicker of memory sparked within him, a service exit he had noticed in the sterile hallway earlier. It was worth a shot, their only option was to take risks. "Over here," he shouted, directing her down yet another darkened passage. Just as they approached the service exit, a horrifying crash resounded. They spun around, feeling the very air charge with a frenzy of unleashed terror. A hulking figure from the shadows lunged into view, one of the guards tasked with containing whatever horror had been unleashed. Marlowe's pulse raced faster than his mind could think. "Run!" he bellowed. The guard's eyes blazed with something resembling rage as he lunged. But before he could take a full step, Marlowe dashed forward, using his shoulders to slam the door shut as the guard stumbled, momentarily thrown off balance. "Push!" Marlowe shouted, his heart pounding. She pressed her back to the door, adrenaline giving her an unexpected strength. They braced against it, the sound of pounding footsteps muffled yet echoing through the walls. "We can't hold them," she gasped, panic rising in her voice. "Just a bit longer. We need to buy time." Marlowe shouted back, the strain apparent in his voice. He felt the temperature in the corridor drop, an ominous chill creeping into the air. As if summoned by the very essence of dread, the lights flickered in and out. Marlowe felt the oppressive energy trying to crush him. In a moment of sheer desperation, he turned the handle, then, something cracked against the door from the other side. "What is happening?" she screamed, fear lacing her tone. Marlowe clenched his jaw, fear battling against hopelessness. "We'll face it head on. But if it comes down to it, we fight." Suddenly, a loud blast reverberated, the door splintering against the force. In that split second, Marlowe's instincts kicked in. "Get ready." The door swung open violently, revealing the once shrouded horror. A woman, impeccably pale yet disheveled, stood amidst a swirl of others behind her, all clones of the eerie figures from the glass cells. Her eyes shimmered with an unnatural glow. Was it madness or something far more sinister? Before Marlowe could move, she locked eyes with him, a familiarity surfacing in the abyss. "It's time for you to understand." And just like that, the truth was standing before him, a dark mirror reflecting the depths of human ambition and the choices they had made. Who were they? What had they really been hiding? Marlowe's heart raced with dread. This was just the beginning of understanding the twisted realities they stumbled into. What was Phase 2 meant to unlock? And would they survive long enough to find out? Time slowed as the woman's piercing gaze bore into Marlowe's soul. What did she know? Each second dragged on, heavy with anticipation and dread. He felt her grip tighten, almost as if she were drawing strength from him. Who are you?" he managed to sputter, voice shaky with disbelief. The pale woman smiled, but it held no warmth. "You're not ready for the truth, Marlowe." Her voice was smooth, chillingly calm. "But you will be." From behind her, the shadowy figures stirred, their movements synchronized like a macabre dance. A sickening fear washed over Marlowe. This wasn't just any facility, it was a breeding ground for nightmares, and he was trapped in the epicenter. "Run!" he yelled suddenly, dragging the woman with him. They bolted backward through the corridor, but the eerie figures flowed toward them like smoke, filling all available space with an overwhelming presence. "Marlowe!" she gasped, despair wrapping around her words. "We can't just run forever." He could sense the hopelessness creeping in again. Heart pounding like a drum, he skidded to a halt. "We can't just let them have us. If I can find the control room, maybe we can." "Marlowe, behind you." The urgency in her voice snapped him back. He turned. The guard surged forward, an impossibly swift shadow lunging with unbearable intent. Marlowe reacted instinctively, throwing the woman behind him as he braced to confront the threat. "Get back!" he shouted, fists clenched. But surprise flickered in the guard's eyes as the pale woman stepped between them, an unsettling calmness radiating from her. "No, Captain." Her voice flowed like velvet, luring the guard to a halt as if his obedience had been instinctively summoned. For a moment, everything was frozen: time, movement, even horror. Marlowe's mind reeled. Who was this woman? "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, voice trembling. "What do you want from us?" "Believe it or not, you're part of a larger experiment," she replied, her tone almost playful. "This facility is a gateway, a transition into what we were meant to become." Marlowe's heart raced. Drifting through his thoughts was the idea that something beyond imagination lay ahead. Experiment? The guard seemed entranced, his gaze locked on the pale woman as she spoke, weaving threads of her presence like a horror film's siren. Marlowe took a tentative step back, wishing to pull the woman with him, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the scene unfolding. "This is no mere containment issue. You," she pointed at him, "are essential to us. Your background is recorded, but your potential, it far exceeds anything we anticipated." "What potential?" he barked, breathing heavily, nearing the edge of madness. "Phase 2 will unveil the degree of transformation you are yet to comprehend. You can either join us in this awakened existence or fight against what you cannot understand. The choice is yours," she said, smile widening. Marlowe's gut twisted at her words. What choice was there? He watched the guard, now a puppet caught in the web of her will. This wasn't just about survival. A far deeper truth stirred, and he had to grasp it before it consumed him. "What happens if I refuse?" he challenged, voice firmer, but she merely shrugged, an unsettling smile flitting across her lips. "Then the shadows will take you. And, my dear Marlowe, they are hungry." He turned back to the corridor. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to escape the darkness surrounding him. "Follow me." The woman's voice rang out, pulling him from his stupor as she beckoned towards another corridor splashed with dim light. Against all senses, something felt oddly beckoning about her. Marlowe hesitated, his heart pounded furious decisions. Was there more to her plan? Would his choice seal their fate? As he took a step towards the unknown, shadows threatened to envelop him, an eerie chorus of whispers echoing around. "Time is running out, Marlowe." With a final desperate glance over his shoulder, he plunged into the corridor, chasing the mystery ahead. Would he confront the truth, or would the shadows swallow him whole? And just beyond the next bend, a door loomed large, and with it, the promise of answers or the finality of darkness. What lay behind it would change everything. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with an array of screens, cables, and flashing lights. Marlowe's gaze bounced from one device to another, each flickering like a distant star in a night that threatened to collapse into darkness. The air was thick with anticipation and the faint smell of burnt wires. He stepped inside, adrenaline coursing through him as the shadows slithered at his heels. "Quickly!" the woman urged, her voice slicing through the oppressive silence. She darted to a console, fingers dancing over the controls with an unsettling familiarity. The screens flickered to life, casting an eerie glow on her pale face. "What are you doing?" he asked, glancing nervously at the door, half expecting the guard to burst through at any second. "Accessing information," she replied, not looking up. "I need to show you what's happening here. We don't have much time." Marlowe hesitated, torn between the urge to escape and the magnetic pull of truth. "What did you mean by Phase 2? What are they planning?" Before she could answer, a low growl echoed from the corridor, sending a shiver down Marlowe's spine. He fought the instinct to back away, unable to take his eyes off her. "We're running out of time," she insisted, urgency creeping into her voice. "They know we're here." A new image flashed across one of the screens. It showed a group of people, bound and hooded, positioned as if waiting for a ritual. Their faces were obscured, but the heaviness of their despair was palpable even through the static. Marlowe's stomach twisted. "Who are they?" "Experiment subjects," she said grimly. "You were right about this place. It's a trap, but not for you. They need your potential for something darker. Something that challenges the very fabric of humanity." Marlowe felt his pulse quicken. Potential for what? To become one of those things? Or to become something greater, she countered, a frown creasing her forehead. "Imagine harnessing the shadows, bending them to our will instead of being consumed by them. That's what they want." The growl grew louder, a chilling promise. He could feel it in his bones, the approaching danger, the dire weight of her words. "What if I refuse?" he shot back, anger and fear mingling in his voice. "What if I don't want to become a part of this twisted experiment?" A flicker of sadness crossed her features. "Then they won't just take you, they'll take all of us. The choice is about survival now, Marlowe." With a surge of movement, the shadowy figures emerged at the doorway, their forms melting together like liquid darkness, every detail obscured yet unmistakably threatening. It was an army of nightmares, hungry and ready. "Marlowe, we don't have time to debate," she urged, her hands a blur as she punched more keys, desperate to access the truth. "You need to trust me if we're going to get out of this." The shadows drew closer, their whispers mingling into a cacophony of dread. His heart raced. Every instinct screamed to run, but something held him back. "Show me," he demanded suddenly, steeling himself against the encroaching terror. "Show me what they're planning. I want to be a pawn in their game." She paused, meeting his gaze with an intensity that nearly froze him. Are you ready to face the truth, even if it shatters everything you thought you knew? Just then, the screens flickered violently, revealing images not just of the captives but of Marlowe himself, flashes of his life, his choices, and the very shadows that seemed to bend toward him now. It was all too much, and the weight of understanding threatened to crush him. Time mess up. She screamed, reaching for him as the shadows lunged forward, an unstoppable tide that would swallow them whole. Marlowe felt a rush of dread. Was it already too late? As the room was engulfed in darkness, he braced himself for the unknown, a swirling chaos that promised answers yet threatened to obliterate his very existence. What vital truth would emerge from the shadows, and at what cost would he uncover it? The darkness felt alive, thick and coiling around Marlowe like a noose. Panic surged within him, tightening his chest as the shadows pressed closer. He could hear their whispers now, insidious and beckoning, promising both power and despair. His back was to the wall, and every instinct screamed for him to flee, but the woman's eyes, fierce and resolute, held him in place. Trust me. She pleaded again, urgency lacing her voice. I'll get us out. Before he could respond, the shadows surged, enveloping the room in an oppressive gloom. The screens flickered and faded, plunging the space into an almost total void. Marlowe could feel his heart hammering against his ribcage. What now? He asked, voice barely above a whisper as the terror of the unknown closed in on him. They're here. She shouted, glancing frantically toward the doorway. Her fingers raced over the controls, desperate to restore the flickering images, while Marlowe felt the ground beneath him shift, as if the very structure of reality was bending. Suddenly, the monitors blinked to life, revealing scenes carrying a feverish urgency. He saw the hooded captives again, faces twisted in fear, flanked by shadowy figures manipulating the strings of an unseen puppet show. Each image pulsed with emotion, their silent screams echoed in his head. What the hell is this? He yelled, his frustration mingling with dread. It's what they do to those who refuse to comply, she answered, her voice trembling. It's not just about you, Marlowe. It's about everyone. They want to harness fear, use it to control the very essence of humanity. The air crackled with static as the shadows beyond the door clawed at their entrance. He could hear the sound of fabric tearing and the breathing of something hungry. Where do we go? He pressed, adrenaline surging through him, filling him with a shaky resolve. We're trapped. Not yet, she said, confidence flickering in her eyes. We can access a backup exit. But I need a moment. Moments are luxury. He spat, every inch of him screaming to run. He glanced once more at the door, petrified as shadows began to converge in a maelstrom of darkness. It was a swirling mass of nightmares, closing in. The woman turned, and for the first time, Marlowe saw fear cross her features. If we don't get out of here, we'll join them, become part of what they're creating. You don't want to be consumed by this, do you? Then do something. He pushed, his voice cracking. You said you had a plan. I do. She shouted back, her voice escalating against the encroaching chaos. But I can't do it alone. The sound of footsteps echoed ominously in the hallway, a heavy thud that sent a spark of dread coursing through him. The moment felt suspended, time stretching like a taut wire ready to snap. Get ready, she warned, her fingers hovering above the console, poised to execute whatever plan she had in mind. Marlowe felt the surge of adrenaline and dread intertwining, unwilling to let him think clearly. He felt her gaze bore into him, urging him to connect. Together, Marlowe. We need to make it out together. And in that moment, surrounded by darkness and fear, a flicker of a decision ignited in his chest. Could he embrace this power, whatever it meant? He could become something dangerous, yet crucial. If they were to escape, change would have to be made. But just then, the shadows screamed, not in agony but in triumph as they surged forward, engulfing the light around them. Marlowe! She screamed as the light dimmed, but he could barely hear her over the swirling madness enveloping them. Would he yield to the darkness or fight against it? The darkness promised answers, but what would the cost be? Would he lose himself in the process or find a new identity waiting to emerge? The storm of darkness closed in, swirling with a cacophony of whispers that threatened to drown out all reason. Marlowe felt like a moth caught in flames, struggling to make sense of it all even as the heat intensified. He glanced at the woman, her resolve unwavering, but fear flickering in her eyes like a candle in a tempest. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand, and he knew they had to act. "Okay, together," he breathed, his voice firm despite the chaos. He understood now that this was more than just a fight for survival, it was a fight for their very identities. It was a breaking point, a choice at the crossroads of darkness and light. With a swift motion, the woman entered codes on the console, her fingers dancing over the panel. The air crackled with energy, a rhythmic tension building as the screens flared to life once more, illuminating the hideous silhouettes that lurked at the door. "Here!" she exclaimed, tapping a button that pulsed with urgency. "This will activate the emergency protocol. It'll give us a chance to escape." Marlowe's heart raced. It was risky, but it was the only shot they had. The shadows writhed closer, and he could almost feel their breath, the foul, hungry craving for what they represented. The screens flashed images of what they had witnessed, the hooded figures, the torment, the endless cycle of despair. With each flicker, the rage within him ignited. "Do it!" he urged, his determination flowing with every beat of his heart. "Now!" The woman pressed the button, and a loud blaring alarm erupted through the air, followed by a sudden surge of bright light. The chaos momentarily recoiled, shadows hissing as if they too feared the light. The emergency protocol worked, and a heavy door on the far side of the room began to slide open. "Go!" she shouted, pulling him by the arm. He could feel the gravity of that choice lingering between them: leave and save themselves, or turn back and confront the nightmare. But there was little time for consideration, their only option was to flee toward the gleaming exit. They dashed through the doorway, breathless and wide-eyed, heartbeats racing as they plunged into the unknown. The corridor outside was dim and ominous, filled with echoes of their footsteps and the haunting cries of whatever lay within the darkness. "Where to?" she gasped, fear palpable in her voice. Marlowe placed his hands on her shoulders, locking eyes with her. "We push through. There's got to be an exit on the other side of this complex, a way back to the surface." They sprinted forward, rounded the next corner, and suddenly stumbled upon a misty glass atrium. Moonlight filtered through the glass, illuminating a path to freedom. As they raced towards it, they could hear the shadows trailing behind, screams of rage mingling with desperation. "Just a little faster," he urged, adrenaline fueling every step. They burst through the glass doors, breathing in the crisp, cold air of the night. Freedom felt so close, tantalizingly sweet. But then a deep growl reverberated behind them, an encroaching threat spilling from the shadows. "Run!" Marlowe urged, pulling her along as they navigated the beautifully manicured lawns of the complex, now twisted in a surreal halo of fear and exhilaration. They raced toward a stark exit, the scent of fresh grass mingling with the musky odor of unease. Just as they reached the threshold, he felt the ground shake, a final warning that something dark was close on their tails. And then, it burst into the moonlight. Marlowe whirled around, heart pounding as he faced the figure, an ominous presence twisted in a human shape, shadows forming its grotesque body. "Your journey isn't over, naive ones," it barked, teeth glistening in the moonlit chaos. "You've only glimpsed the beginning." Before Marlowe could respond, the woman stepped forward, her defiance a stark contrast to the threat before them. "No. We've chosen our path. We are not afraid of your darkness." In that moment, something shifted in Marlowe. Instead of fear, a strange sense of power surged within him, an acceptance of what he might become, of choices made and paths rooted in defiance. "Together," he reiterated, nodding at the woman beside him, feeling her strength fuse with his. They were not merely fleeing, they were transforming. As the shadows lunged, they braced for impact. Instead of being consumed, Marlowe thrust his hand forward, summoning everything he had learned in the labyrinth of chaos behind them. "Enough!" he shouted, a voice booming with newfound authority. The shadows recoiled, flickering as though confronted by an unexpected light, wavering in the balance of control. It was not just a way to escape, it was a ripple in the fabric of their fates. This was their moment, standing together against the tide of darkness. And as the shadows dithered and hesitated, Marlowe and the woman took one last step forward, defiant, determined, ready to forge their own destinies, and with one powerful push, they stepped into the cool night, leaving behind the encroaching darkness. Once outside, the silver moon bathed the grounds in ethereal light, a welcoming embrace of freedom. The shadows shrieked behind them, but the weight of their choices resonated like thunder. They stood there, breathless, relief washing over them like a cool breeze. The danger they faced was not vanquished entirely, but they had become something more. They emerged forged together in fire, each determined to fight, to reveal the truth, and to reclaim the power that had nearly consumed them. Marlowe turned to her, a sense of unity binding them stronger than any fear they had faced. "We'll expose them," he promised, eyes darkened with resolve. "We'll fight together against whatever comes next." The woman smiled, and he felt that spark, the beginning of a new journey forged by choices steeped in courage. The night held echoes of their shared battle, the shadows retreating, but not forgotten. They were marked by the experience changed but unbroken. They began to walk away from the complex, the weight of secrets now a beacon behind them. Together, they would shine a light on the darkness and expose what had hidden in plain sight. As dawn broke, a new day awaited. And whatever came next, they would face it side by side. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your support means everything to the channel and keeps amazing stories like this coming.